Welcome to Your Business Talks, brought to you by Retiring with Joy TV, where we bring you businesses, services and organisations that can support you to live the best time of your life yet, retirement and beyond. Now, as we know, not everything at retirement is joy and flowers and relaxation and sun and beach. Sometimes difficult things happen. And we're here today with Tim Connolly from New Haven Funerals, where they support you to go through one of the toughest times of your life when you lose a loved one. Tim, I'm so happy to have you here because it is a tough topic to talk about. And I know that your service brings a lot to the community. So tell us a little bit about New Haven Funerals, because it really is a family legacy for you.
Well, thanks, Maria. It's a privilege to be here, and it is a legacy. Mum and Dad started the business back in 1979. In 1977, my dad's sister lost a child, and they went to the funeral director. They went through the process of arranging the funeral, and they weren't satisfied with the result that they got from the funeral director. The funeral director belittled my father when Dad questioned the account, the finances of it, and it was at that point that my dad thought that there has to be a better way and a more simple way of arranging a funeral. From that point, the business grew to a multinational company with branches across Australia, and has since reverted back to a smaller family-operated business, which we find allows us to really concentrate on the client and give them our very, very best. So, yeah.
And you're based here on the Gold Coast, but how far is your reach now?
All of southeast Queensland, probably a circle from Redcliffe all the way down to the Tweed border and out to behind Ipswich. We have an office at our funeral home at Burleigh Heads and a world-class crematorium at Yatala, near opposite the drive-in at Yatala there, with 12 acres of memorial gardens, funeral arrangements, chapel. So it's quite a big operation for a small family to run. There's 20 staff in the organisation, and they're all committed to providing the community real world-class service. So, yeah.
And as a family business, what do you think you bring to this area of, a very tough time, having been part of the industry really since you were a child? Yeah.
Simply, it comes down to us becoming part of your family for a week or so while we transition through the grief process. It's important for us to treat every one of our clients like we would treat our own family, and that's really our core values, is being able to treat people how we would expect to be treated. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm wondering, since it started, you've seen a lot of families, you've seen a lot of grief. What's the one thing that stays with you when you're working with people through this difficult process?
Probably the fact that the family carry a lot of grief, and a whole different subject will be the grief process, the stages we go through, shock, anger, some of those things. And quite often it's the funeral director that absorbs a lot of that grief for the family. That's what I've learned, that it's not my grief, it's somebody else's grief, but I have to take that on for them and carry that through till the end of the funeral. And really, that's what I've probably learned, not to take that personally.
Yeah.
But I still need to understand it. Yeah.
Yes, and it is. I mean, hey, as a counsellor too, we do see a lot of emotions in our industries, and how to separate ourselves from the grief of others and be there with them in empathy and support them.
That's right. And by offering all the options to our clients, allows them to be able to have every option available to them, which can make the process a little bit easier for them too.
Funerals can be quite expensive. How does New Haven work with families on that?
Every single client that we have, their cost is tailored to individual. There's standard fees, there's service fee, mortuary fees, transport costs, things like that. But it comes down to the family choices between burial and cremation is probably the first choice. Coffin selections is another. There's different coffins that are available in different price ranges. Aftercare, the urn for holding the ashes. You can have a cremation service from around about $2,000 and anywhere up to beyond $15,000, just based on the choices. Cemetery plot on the Gold Coast, for instance, is about $4,500 just for the plot by itself.
Wow,
so,
that's good to know. I mean, people need to know these things, don't they?
Yeah, and when I'm talking to clients and talking about price is usually the last question that I'll answer. I'll ask them where they want the funeral, what style of funeral, and those questions lead me to be able to give them an accurate price.
Yeah.
And considering that GST is 10% of that cost as well, so it's quite a small margin that actually goes to the funeral home itself.
And I understand New Haven has a service that allows people to prepare for funeral like earlier, to support, so you don't have to have so much upfront payment.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. We would refer to that as funeral pre-planning or funeral pre-paying. And there's a couple of different options. You can pay absolutely nothing, and the remaining family can pay that funeral at tomorrow's cost, 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the track, so you can pay absolutely nothing, but put the choices down on paper. I want to be cremated, I want this coffin, I want these flowers, and something that's really important to personalise the funeral is the choice of music, what songs are played. So we can write all of those things down, and when the time comes, we don't need to worry about trying to think those things up in such a difficult time. So option A is pay nothing, put it in place, let somebody else pay for it in the future.
Yep. It'll
be an inflated cost, of course, with inflation. Option 2 is to do all of the same choices, pay a deposit, and then just pay it off over 2 or 3 years, any time that you're comfortable with. And the third option is just to make all of those choices and pay at today's price, and that locks that price in at today's cost. So what we do, it's not our money, we take that money and we invest it into a trust account, into the bank, and it earns interest to keep in line with inflation. So it's a relatively good investment. There's no means testing on the investment as well, so you're not disadvantaged from a settling perspective, and it's actually a very good way to reduce your assets and potentially maybe even increase pension payments by taking the cash and buying a funeral plan. So,
okay, wonderful.
And if anybody's interested in that, and I've only touched on the tip of the iceberg, they're more than happy to give me a call or one of our team, and we have experts that just go out to pre-planned funerals with people. So
help people get their heads around it,
Yeah.
because it's something that's not talked about, and a lot of people have got those fears around the end of life, and so the funeral's the last thing you want to talk about. So I imagine having someone who's got empathy and who sits down with you and goes through that process is a big weight off people's shoulders, and family shoulders as well.
Yeah, a really good idea is at the dinner table one night, if you feel inclined, just say to your partner or the family, what do you want for your funeral? I would like to have da-da-da, and it will give you a bit of an indication of actually what you want to do in case something did occur. And it's just an open conversation at dinner time, or around the table, or
over a cup of tea.
A cup of tea, or or standing on the bank fishing with your dad, or something like that. Yeah, it's but if you don't talk about it, it just makes everything so much more difficult at the end, and it's not a scary subject. People, I don't know what it is, but people don't like to talk about it. But I don't know. But we're here to talk about it, and we're saying some of these things today. And
absolutely,
it's a great privilege for me to be able to share a business that is a little unique, but is shrouded a lot from the community, and we don't want that. We want to be able to talk to people and educate people. We do crematorium tours, open days,
wonderful.
Other things that education events, grief and loss seminars at retirement villages, and so we're training and helping nurses as well with dealing with grief, and that's what we're about now.
Tim, I wanted to ask you about the community work that New Haven Funerals does, because I know that and everyone would say New Haven Funerals is very funeral focused, end of life. But what other things do you do in the community?
As we said a little earlier, we go out to retirement homes and nursing homes and sponsor events to help nurses and nursing staff to understand grief and loss. It's very sad for a nurse at a retirement home or a nursing home to be caring for a person for many years and to go away from work and come back the next day and that person's not there anymore. And for us to be able to help the nurses understand their own grief, and to be able to understand the grief of the remaining relatives when they're coming back to the nursing home to deal with the affairs as well, to be able to understand those things. In the past, we've helped a lot of at-risk community groups. One in particular is SAILS, that's Sailing Adventures in Life Skills, where we were taking young kids out on the boat and giving them some responsibility to operate the boat, work with each other in a team environment, and hopefully improve their future, and to make some better choices. We're reading the newspaper there where those young children were very seriously injured in the car.
Yes.
And for me to go out to a school and have a conversation, particularly with grade 11 and grade 12 students about schoolies, some of the things that are risking their lives, and for them to be aware of those things and how quickly life can be taken away, is something that we're fond of. We do a lot of work with the RACQ as well, and there's what they call a docudrama, where they'll have an event at the school with the ambulance and the fire and the undertaker, and the kids get dressed up with makeup on, and they do a sort of a scene as to what might happen at a road accident. But we love being involved in the community because that's what it's about. In addition to that, our crematorium too helps the community by recycling a lot of our metal waste, some of the recyclables that are available to us, and the money that comes back to that is donated out to the community through our philanthropic funds. So we try to give back as much as we possibly can because we're been in business on the Gold Coast for 40 years, and
you're part of the community.
We want to help.
You're part of the community, which is wonderful. I just keep saying wonderful because I've known Tim for a little while now, and I've always seen him as someone who's a very compassionate and empathic person who understands a lot of the issues that go on for people. Now, at that retirement age or in that kind of age bracket, you're dealing with older parents. It's a really a difficult time when you're trying to, live a life that you're supposed to be living up, and then caring for your parents possibly as well, and knowing that you can come to someone like Tim and talk through and prepare for your family is a weight off your shoulders and allows you to have a more relaxed time.
Yeah, and it's not just about the funeral arrangement. We'll be able to advise and talk about will, that you must organise a will, enduring power of attorney. We can put you in touch with certain groups that will help you write that and put that together properly, because there's nothing worse than having to meet with the family and nothing's been put in place. It's just it's very difficult for the remaining family, stressful. It doesn't need to be stressful. Simply, really, the best thing to do is just to give us a call, and it takes me 2 to 3 appointments with a family before we actually put it, write things down on paper or do anything from a finance perspective. I'll just go and have half an hour conversation with someone and ask, just what do you see? What do you want? And I'll jot down a couple of notes and let them go away and have a bit of a think about it. And when they're ready, they come back to me and say, "Well, I'm ready now to put a few more things in place." And so it's 2 or 3 meetings, and there's no pressure. I'm not here to pressure anybody. It's a personal decision.
So there you go, everyone. New Haven Funerals, a service that listens.
We try to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's been wonderful talking with you today.
Yeah.
I really have enjoyed this conversation because I've learnt more about New Haven Funerals and also the funeral process myself. So it's been a real education for me too. That is all from Your Business Talks today, and I look forward to seeing you again in our next episode. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Oh, yeah.